The Chargers made a surprising move on Monday, signing Ezekiel Elliott to their practice squad. It raises some eyebrows considering how much he's struggled over the past few seasons, but there are still areas where he could bring value to the Chargers running back group, and this signing may be the bad news for one running back ahead of NFL playoffs. Along with this surprising move, we're going to share some other updates about the Bolts before moving into the playoffs. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones released Elliott, reportedly allowing him to find a playoff team. With multiple options on the table, Elliott chose the Chargers. General manager Joe Ortiz has been very active in making moves around the roster fringes. Now the big question is, what can he really contribute at this stage of his career? Justin Herbert remains under pressure to deliver in the postseason. It feels like the expectations just keep shifting for him. What will it take to quiet the critics? And more importantly, can this Chargers team make a serious playoff run? It's worth noting they have the kind of path that gives them a shot. But let's break this down further. Elliott's move to the practice squad was confirmed by Jordan Schultz, who reported the running back was looking for a legitimate shot at competing for a Super Bowl. Ian Rappaport clarified it was a practice squad signing, but as we've seen all season, that often doesn't mean much. If you're added this late in the year, it's typically with a plan in mind. That said, it's a bit surprising. Elliott hasn't been the same running back for a while now. He's far from the every-down workhorse back he once was. His production has dipped, and there's no sugarcoating that. But even so, there are still ways he could help this Chargers backfield. The move makes more sense when you consider Gus Edwards' recent ankle injury. His status remains uncertain, and this signing could be a signal that he's not close to returning. Elliott, despite his recent struggles, brings experience and physicality that could be useful in certain situations. His prime years in Dallas were impressive, 7 straight seasons of solid production with over 4 yards per carry. But his last couple of seasons have been different. In 2022, he managed just 876 yards with 12 touchdowns, showing a clear decline in efficiency. However, Elliott isn't being brought in to be the lead back. That's clearly J.K. Dobbins' role. Elliott is here to complement the group, provide veteran experience, and fill specific roles where he can still make a difference. One area where he still stands out is pass protection. Even though his PFF grades don't fully reflect it, Elliott is still highly respected as a physical pass blocker around the league. His ability to hold his ground and deliver strong blocks is one of the reasons teams remain interested in him. Statistically, Elliott has allowed just 2 pressures on 30 pass blocking snaps this season. Compare that to the rest of the Chargers' depth behind Dobbins, Hassan Haskins, and Kamani Vidal, who have allowed 8 pressures on 52 combined snaps. That gap explains why the Chargers see Elliott as a useful addition. A fan poll recently asked if Elliott would play meaningful snaps in the playoffs. The consensus seems to be no, but it depends on how you define meaningful. He probably won't see a heavy workload or cut into Vidal or Haskins' carries significantly. However, there are 2 clear ways he could make an impact: pass protection and short yardage situation. The Chargers' short yardage struggles were on full display last week. They were stuffed 3 straight times from inside the 1-yard line, eventually settling for a frustrating field goal. That's exactly the kind of scenario where a physical back like Elliott could be useful. At this stage of his career, Ezekiel Elliott isn't going to be averaging 5 yards per carry, but he might still have something to offer in short yardage situations. Credit to the Chargers for trying something different here. Hassan Haskins, while he's shown improvement lately, isn't built for those tough short yardage carries. That's just not his strength, and when he's been asked to fill that role this year, it's been a struggle. Bringing in Elliott could be a move aimed specifically at solving that issue. If you're inside the 1-yard line and need someone to fall forward for a tough yard, Elliott still has that ability. It's the kind of depth move that could help avoid relying on quarterback sneaks every time. Though with Justin Herbert's size, that remains a solid option too. This signing also feels like a bet on the Chargers' culture and coaching staff. The roster already has several reclamation projects, players who've found new life and delivered their best seasons in years after joining the team. There are probably around 10 players fitting that description right now, so this isn't unfamiliar territory for the Chargers staff. That said, it's clear Elliott is at a crossroads in his career. He was even made inactive earlier this season after missing team meetings, essentially a suspension. His production has declined, and this signing feels like a hope that they can get just enough out of him to contribute in critical moments during the playoffs. At the very least, he brings postseason experience, and that could have some value. Unfortunately, the Elliott signing also signals bad news for Gus Edwards. He's missed the last 2 games and hasn't practiced since aggravating his ankle injury. Based on that, it doesn't seem likely he'll play this week. Of course, the practice report will clarify things, but it would be tough to see his season end like this. especially after his standout run against the Broncos a few weeks ago, one of the most memorable plays of the year for the Chargers. Edwards' season has been defined by injuries from the very start. He missed significant time during training camp, and even when the regular season arrived, he continued battling setbacks. Outside of that one electric run, his season has been frustratingly limited. As for the Chargers' running back room moving forward, there's already speculation about changes next season. When you look at the core group, J.K. Dobbins, Edwards, Haskins, and Kamani Vidal, it's fair to question if the room will stay the same in 2025. The team has the cap space to keep this group together, but it's more likely they'll look for some fresh talent. Haskins, drafted in 2022, remains under contract through 2025 since the Chargers claimed him off waivers. Edwards and Vidal are also under contract next year. The issue? None of them have consistently shown they can be above-average runners this season. Dobbins, the most effective of the group, is set to hit free agency in 2025. Edwards, despite his flashes, has struggled to stay healthy. Haskins has shown promise, but feels more like a special teams player than a reliable backfield option. Vidal has had very limited action and hasn't proven enough yet to be seen as a lead back moving forward. So expecting the same group next year feels unlikely. The Chargers will probably explore new options to bolster the backfield, whether through free agency or the draft. But the focus right now remains on this playoff push. Now, shifting the focus to Justin Herbert, the conversation around him feels different. The Chargers reaching the playoffs is a major achievement, but for Herbert, the expectations are clearly higher. Some critics argue that even a win over the Texans wouldn't change the narrative around him. The reality is Herbert could win this game, and the goalpost would still shift. Some will say it was just the Texans, or demand he win multiple playoff games before giving him the credit he deserves. And that's not unique to Herbert. Look at how Lamar Jackson, despite being a multi-time MVP, still faces criticism for his postseason record. Even Josh Allen, who's won several playoff games, hasn't been immune to the same scrutiny. Ultimately, winning one playoff game won't completely silence the doubters, but it would be a significant step. What really changes the narrative? Competing deep into the playoffs? AFC championships? Super Bowls? That's what moves the needle. Until Herbert reaches that point, the conversation around him will remain centered on postseason success, or the lack of it. Justin Herbert needs this playoff win to solidify his standing among the league's top quarterbacks. The talent is obvious. Everyone who watches him regularly knows he belongs in that top 5 conversation. But from a media perspective, the criticism won't stop until he proves it in the postseason. History only remembers the winners. No one talks about how long it took Peyton Manning to win his first playoff game, only that he became a 2-time Super Bowl champion and Hall of Famer. That's the kind of legacy Herbert can still create, but it feels like the time is now. Besides this criticism, one thing that is impressive is that he's trying to do this with arguably the weakest offensive supporting cast of his career. His receiving core is depleted, and the offense has had its struggles. Yet here the Chargers are in the postseason, with a legitimate shot to make noise. Whether the Chargers win or lose in Houston, this season has already been a success for the coaching staff and organization. Just look at the last season record. They just build a foundation that finally feels sustainable, something fans can be proud of. That said, making the playoffs can't be the end goal. No one in that building believes just reaching the postseason is enough. The players expect to compete for a Super Bowl, not just show up. If the Chargers were to lose to Houston, it would be disappointing. Plain and simple. They're the better team on paper, and this is a game they should win. But looking at the bigger picture, the Chargers are clearly trending in the right direction. They've added 6 wins compared to last season, a massive turnaround. Credit goes to the front office for rethinking how they approach leadership. Investing in a proven head coach and committing to long-term success has already paid dividends. When the season started, pairing Justin Herbert with Jim Harbaugh came with high expectations, and they've delivered by making the postseason. So, by that measure, it's a successful first year under this new regime. But the bar is only going to get higher from here. So, there you have it. The Chargers have taken a bold step with Ezekiel Elliott, and the pressure is mounting on Justin Herbert as the playoffs approach. With injuries in the backfield and questions around the offensive line, this team faces some real challenges. What do you think? Will Ezekiel Elliott make a real impact for the Chargers in the playoffs, or was this move just a backup plan? And can Justin Herbert finally quiet the critics with a deep postseason run? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear your take on whether the Bolts are ready to make a statement this postseason.